Good morning, fifth graders. Welcome to lesson 4 of coordinate systems. Today we're going to be talking about geometry because it's going to bridge the gap between what we already know and have learned about coordinate systems and where we're headed. So let's take a look at the slideshow. And at first, we'll read our objective before we talk a little bit more about geometry itself. So lesson 4, I can name various quadrilaterals by knowing their properties. That's our objective for today. Before we talk about where we see geometry in the real world, we need to first understand, well, what is geometry? And geometry is a kind of math that deals with shapes and figures. Geometry explains how to build or draw shapes, measure them, and compare them. So really, it's about shapes and figures. So here we have 3 different examples of geometry in real life. And these were just examples that came to mind right away for me. So up here, we've got a baseball field, or often referred to as a baseball diamond, various shapes within that field. We've got a basketball court, okay? Right away in the basketball court, I can see the court itself is a rectangle. I see that at mid-court, we have a circle. So various shapes and geometry coming into play there as well. And then the third example of where we see shapes and geometry in the real world are skyscrapers. So that would be a third example. Okay, so again, geometry is dealing with shapes and figures. So maybe you can think of an additional place that we'll see geometry in the real world. Now, in order for us to understand the shapes that we're going to be learning about today, we do need to build some background knowledge and talk about some vocabulary. So the first word we're going to learn is an angle. Angles are a figure made by 2 intersecting lines or 2 rays extending from the same point. So if you see here in this picture, you have one line and a second line that intersect, and because they intersect, the red right here is that angle that they form. All right? Now, there are different kinds of angles depending on how the lines intersect. So a right angle, which I'm sure many of you have heard of before, is a 90-degree angle, and it's formed by 2 perpendicular lines or line segments. So that is when my lines intersect, creating a 90-degree angle. The next type of angle is an acute angle, which is an angle that measures less than 90 degrees. So if this is a 90-degree angle, okay, acute angles are going to be anything less than that, okay, anything less. So those are all acute angles. And then the last one, so I'm going to go back to a 90-degree angle. The last type of angle we're going to discuss today is an obtuse angle. An obtuse angle is an angle that measures between 90 and 180 degrees. So as you can see, it's bigger than a right angle, okay? The angle is larger than that 90-degree angle, okay? So let's learn about some shapes now that we understand those angles, all right? The reason we need to understand the angles is because some of the quadrilaterals and shapes that we're going to be looking at, properties within them are angles that we need to know about. And it's gonna help us classify and name them. So first, a polygon. A polygon is a 2-dimensional, which is a fancy word for flat. So it's a flat shape with straight sides. And so here you have a picture, all right, on the bottom with examples of shapes that are polygons on the left side and that are not polygons on the right side, all right? So here you have a picture of looks like an oval, right? It's a shape, but it's not straight sides. It's just one curved line around. All right, and then all these shapes on the left are polygons because if you can see, they have straight sides and they are flat, right? So if I look here at this rectangular prism, the lines are straight, but it's not flat. This is a 3-dimensional shape. So again, polygon, a flat shape with straight sides. A quadrilateral is what we are focusing on today. Where have you seen that root word quad before? And what does it mean, right? Have any of you ever ridden a quad before, right? Quad means 4. So a quadrilateral is a shape, a flat shape, two-dimensional, with four straight sides. And here you have 6 examples of quadrilaterals. If you look at each of them and count their sides, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 straight sides, and they are all flat. So let's learn some different quadrilaterals. The first quadrilateral we're going to talk about is a parallelogram, and here are its properties. So as I mentioned, it's a quadrilateral. It has 4 straight sides. The opposite sides are parallel. Parallel means you're going in the same direction and your lines will never intersect. Okay, so if I look here, in many pictures, they'll use arrows to indicate that lines are parallel. So I can see that this line right here connecting A and B is parallel to this line that connects C and D because the arrows, one arrow, are going in the same direction and indicates that they are parallel. Again, parallel means they will never intersect. Okay. I can also see that these opposite sides are parallel as well because they have the arrows going in the same direction as well, which again indicates that my lines are parallel. So the opposite sides are parallel, and the opposite sides are also equal in length. So I can see that A to B, D to C are equal, and B to C and A to B are equal. So those are the properties of a parallelogram. All right, and you have some examples down here of shapes that are parallelograms and shapes that are not a parallelogram. The next quadrilateral is a trapezoid. The properties of a trapezoid, you have one pair of opposite sides that are parallel. Again, in this picture, you can see the arrows moving in the same direction in these opposite lines indicate they are parallel, which means they will never intersect. So trapezoid, one pair of parallel sides that are opposite one another, okay? The next quadrilateral is a kite. A kite has 2 pairs of equal length adjacent sides. What that means is the sides that are next to each other, okay, 2 pairs of them should be equal. All right, so we know that the arrows going in the same direction on opposite sides in geometry will often indicate parallel. These lines that you see in this kite indicate equal lengths. So between A and B, I see that 1 hash, and between B and C, I see that same hash. That indicates to me that A to B and B to C are equal in length. And then the reason that you have 2 lines here between A and D and C and D is to indicate that those lines are also equal to each other, but a different length, right? And you see that picture of a kite there, and you might have seen a picture, you might have seen a kite flying at the beach before. Now that's something that you can look at, right? Understanding that it's a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of equal sides that are next to each other. That's what that fancy word adjacent means. The next quadrilateral is a rhombus, okay? A rhombus has all sides that are equal lengths. So that's why you have a line on each side of this quadrilateral, and there's only one line. It indicates that all 4 sides are equivalent, okay? And you also in a rhombus have 2 pairs of parallel sides. So again, the arrows on opposite sides indicate to me that they are parallel. The next quadrilateral we're going to discuss is a rectangle. I'm sure many of you have seen and classified rectangles before, if not all of you. Okay, the properties of a rectangle are as follows. You have 2 pairs of parallel sides that are opposite one another. Okay, so this line and this line should have arrows because they are parallel, they will never intersect. And this side should have arrows as well because they will never intersect. They are parallel, okay? In a rectangle, you also have 4 right angles, which are indicated by that box in the corner. And again, remember, a right angle is a 90-degree angle formed when 2 lines intersect with one another and are perpendicular, okay? the other feature to think about before we jump ahead to a square is the difference between a rectangle and a square being that the rectangle does not have 4 sides that are equal. The opposite sides are equal, okay? But you can see here, this top side and bottom side are not the same or equal length as the left side and the right side, okay? A square, on the other hand, is a quadrilateral with 4 equal sides. So I can see that indicated in this shape because it has the same number of lines on each side of the square, okay? And a square also has 4 right angles as well, okay? So your turn is to use this information to complete the quadrilateral assignment on Seesaw. Okay, so let's take a look at the Seesaw assignment. All right, so it is labeled naming quadrilaterals. All right, now here's a really helpful picture and chart that you can use as you complete the assignment. To see this picture bigger, you're just going to click on the picture, view original, and then a new tab will open up. And you can see all the different quadrilaterals and their properties that we just discussed. Okay, go back to Seesaw. To complete the actual assignment, all right, you're going to click Add Response. All right, but before you click Add Response, you want to make sure you read all of the directions. Okay, so you're going to click Add Response. All right, now your job is to match the quadrilateral with its definition. Okay, as I mentioned, you're more than welcome to use the chart right here, or you can go back to the video and refer to the properties that we discussed there. All right, so there's 2 ways that you can go about doing this and writing in this document. You can either use the pencil, all right, which is down here, and write. So let's say number 1, all sides are the same length. There are 4 right angles. So if I think, okay, that's a parallelogram, I could use the pencil and write in an A. And I might just cross that off so I know I used it, okay, if I think that number 1 is a parallelogram. All right. Now, that's one way that you can type in the answers. The other way is you can use this text box. So I can click on this T, and I could write it this way. So if I think, again, number 1 is A, I could do this. Now, this one's a little funky, but I like it because I think typing is a little bit easier in terms of writing your responses. And then, especially when you get to number 6 down at the bottom where you're going to have to type a sentence or 2. So to be able to move this around, all right, you're going to want to click this down here, this hand, and now you have some access. So I'm going to just shrink this a little bit just so it's not huge. And now I can maneuver it and put it right there, okay? And when I'm done with that, I just click elsewhere, okay? So you can really bounce around and use text box all over. Again, I would recommend the text box, especially for when you get down here. You could use both. Really, whichever you think is easiest, whichever you're most comfortable with, okay? So you're matching the quadrilateral with its definition, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quadrilaterals. And then number 6 is a short response where you are listing 2 ways a rectangle and square are alike and 1 way in which they are different, okay? When you're done with your work, you're going to click the check mark up here so your work is submitted, okay? So that is your job. Best of luck. Reach out to your teacher if you need extra assistance. You guys are going to do great.